Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Charity Charge Show. My name is Matt, and at Charity Charge, our mission is to power yours. Outside of this podcast and blog series, we do that through equitable access to financial tools and services, such as our credit card and gift card programs. If that sounds like it would be helpful to your organization, please do reach out to us. We are here for you. And today I am joined by Vanessa Lockle, who is the executive director of CCE Suffolk, which is the Cornell Cooperative extension of Suffolk County. Welcome, Vanessa. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Matt.
Absolutely. Glad to have you on the show. Very excited to chat with you and, learn a little bit more about Cornell Cooperative Extension. Before we do that, I'm just kind of curious about your background. What got you into the nonprofit space and put you on the path that you're on today. So if you could give us a little background on you.
Absolutely. And first and foremost, thank you, Matt, so much for thinking of me and Cornell Cooperative Extension as someone to talk to today. It's been a pleasure. I haven't participated in the traditional nonprofit route, and many nonprofiters probably haven't. I think they either have fallen upon this through a specific cause or maybe their uh, professional direction has kind of led them in a certain way. I definitely had a very different background. I graduated with a degree in theater. I was going to be a techie behind the scenes, making wonderful productions on Broadway Beautiful. And instead, I ended up doing temp work, and I started at JP Morgan. So in the world of finance, doing temp work, and I ended up working in a organization department that focused on workforce and the appropriate support systems to help our employees. And I realized how important it was to kind of get into the mental and the behind the scenes of what makes people want to do great work. And that all of a sudden I was done with theater and I started really kind of tapping into at that time, the private sector. It wasn't long before I realized maybe the private sector wasn't for me. I understand making profits are wonderful, but sometimes I realized that there was a lot of underserved communities that really needed a voice. And I felt that even though this was a wonderful career choice against my mother's will, I did leave and decide to go to an organization that actually taught inmates at Sing Sing how to become financially independent. So these transitional inmates had something to look forward to when they got out and kind of gave them a foundation of really how to have the tools necessary to reduce recidivism. So going in from like the trading floor all the way to, a high prison facility, it was high security prison facility was definitely a challenging transition. But for me, I felt like that was my place. I needed to really be engaging with people and helping people to come out on top. Through that, I was inadvertently out here living on Long Island, and we had something really devastating happen during Superstorm Sandy. And so much of where I was living was devastated. We had people, their homes, they were living in mold, just a lot of the situation that happens after an area has been devastated. And we're seeing that across the United States and just kind of how do people deal with devastation in the aftermath. And so at that time, being someone who was in the world of just caring for the underserved, I was actually called into action to help my community. And that's how I kind of started doing a little bit more work in government. And at the time, I was asked to basically support our Long Island residents to overcome their current situations after devastation and try to create resiliency plans to make sure that that wouldn't happen again in the future. And it was really just organizing people from different backgrounds to come together and come to consensus on how to save their community so that if this ever happened in the future that they'd be okay. Through that I extended some of my government role and ended up working for the governor directly for the state of New York. And in that role, I was the Long Island regional rep. A lot of what that means is you need to know the community. It's community and government relations. You need to know what's going on in your community, who are the stakeholders, the key players that are making things happen within the community. And you want to work with them to make sure that you're advocating for them correctly, you're bringing them down the support services that they're needing correctly. And that level of engagement actually led me to this position when the Cornell Cooperative Extension was looking for a new executive director. They basically need somebody who has a background in all these different areas. And as you saw, Cornell is focused on agriculture, but we're also focused on marine. We're focused on community education, which is health and nutrition. We're focused on youth programming. So there's so many different facets of what get intertwined here at Cornell Cooperative Extension that was almost like a microcosm of what I was dealing with at the Long Island level for the governor. And it became just a natural fit. Like, please come down, please help and support the agricultural community, everything that makes Long Island great, be okay. So it's been a wonderful trip. Hopefully that was a long-winded story, but it just shows you it's and I actually cut down some of my experience because I have over 20 years of experience in government at this point.
Thank you for walking us through that. One thing that comes to mind is, hindsight's 2020. You called your departure from, the theater background and sort of path in that direction. Do you, looking back, is there, some transferable skills or experiences that might have assisted you in stepping into the world of nonprofits? You mentioned working behind the scenes to create something beautiful on a stage. There's definitely some terminology there that sounds a little familiar from our conversations with nonprofits and working with the team and folks with different backgrounds to drive towards a common goal.
Absolutely, and it transcends in so many different ways. It has helped me when talking to people and recognizing that we're all part of putting the show together. Everybody needs to, like, what's your part? How do we all play that in? And so when you're doing production management behind the scenes, who's doing lights, who's doing costumes, who's doing makeup, same thing. Who here is working on all these different transitions to make things happen for the organization or for the mission and vision of our work?
Absolutely.
So yeah, and also in a lot of the work that you do in nonprofit, if the world doesn't see what you're doing, you may not get the funding, you may not get the support. So there is like something, and people hate the word optics sometimes. What's the optics? Because it's like you're playing to a show. But if you don't show people who you are, what you're doing, sometimes in real time or in a production, like here's a big ribbon cutting, here's an open house. You do these things so that people get to see the show and then they then relate to it and maybe help support an advocacy.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of storytelling in both spaces. Folks do like to see the impact through metrics, et cetera, but coming down to the individualistic story of how did you help someone who needed help? That definitely resonates with donors and the like. And yeah, your experience does sound very very personal. I mean, you were called to aid in a time of need, and you were positioned to do that, and then we're called into more of a leadership position with this organization, which is fantastic. What you've been with this particular nonprofit since 2017, is that correct?
It's 2020.
20, gotcha. Okay, and what's changed about your experience there? The mission. As well as just what you've learned in these past 5 years in this leadership role.
As I don't need to tell you, right? The world has experienced the last 5 years, and what haven't we? I think we're even open to aliens, right? At this point, what aren't we open to in our experience of life? When I first started this role, it was in the middle of COVID, so I started in September of 2020. Met
Quite a time to start.
Yes, I met 220 employees through Zoom. I was lucky that I had multiple site locations, one of which was a 272-acre farm. So I could do site visit meetings. And, we would have the 10 feet apart. We would do all this, but it was like my only way of getting people connected to what this work was, which is where's your food come from? Where does what's the earth like? What do we care about Long Islanders here as we're struggling with, all the ramifications of what COVID brought to us, right? And we actually had youth programming running out of that farm. So people would come in and be like, "Are those kids? Do you have kids here?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're 4-H. We're still allowed to stay open." And so we had this programming. I went from that style of very rustic management of employees who were brokenhearted by everything that was happening to where we are now, which is and it's forever, right? Right now we're focusing on federal funding concerns. It's a shift in funding, right? We what I've been able to apply to our organization is trying to balance and ride the wave, right? It's not about fighting every single issue. I'm not here when I advocate, I am speaking from a place of help and like how do we bridge the gap? How do we work together to help everybody? Right. So advocacy for me is more of a like you maybe you didn't know. Let me share with you a little bit of what we got going on here. It's not about the big fight. And what I've done the last 5 years as we've dealt with everybody is really kind of let's look at the wave. Let's see how we have to ride this issue. How do we transition? How do we pivot? So during COVID, everything we pivoted to virtual, to remote. But now, more than ever, people are done with remote. They want to see a face, they want to connect. They want to shake your hand. They want to smell what you're cooking, kind of thing. Like they really do
Mhm.
care about all these things. And so, that, in my experience with working with not only my employees, making sure that they have that, but the stakeholders have that. That everybody involved in what we are doing in our mission and vision is connected. And we were very disconnected when we first got here. So, fortunately for me, when I got here, the organization was around, I think, 14.3. We're currently at 23.5. So these are very exciting that we continue to go up during such a crazy time period, and that has been by expanding those relationships with our government, federal, state, and local regional representatives, government officials, getting everybody to kind of see what we're doing. So even though we're a nonprofit, we're supporting community. We're riding those very important waves. We're balancing, all of the different moving parts, and we're working and collaborating with everybody.
That's wonderful. Yeah, you mentioned the needs of the community that you're serving. Tell me a little bit about Suffolk County and how are they unique in terms of those community needs that you're addressing. It's a massive area in New York State.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. A lot of people, when you think New York, a lot of people always think New York City. When you think upstate, you think Albany, and then maybe Buffalo, maybe Niagara. But when you think downstate, you just think the city. And then you forget there's a whole little island that's attached to the bottom. So that's Long Island. The whole entire island's two counties. It's Suffolk and Nassau, and we have about 3 million. I would say way over that. Those are old census numbers. But in Suffolk specifically, we have 1.5 million residents as of 2024 census data. And we service all of those residents. And here's how: because we are part of the county, we are the county's extension. We get a portion allocated from us from the Suffolk County budget. So every Suffolk County resident pays to the support services of Cornell Cooperative Extension. Now, what is the extension system? Back in 1860s, the United States of America designated that every state would have an educational institution focused on education and research in the area of agriculture. So making sure you were fed. Okay, we got to make sure people have land, make sure they're growing stuff, and make sure all Americans are fed, right? That was the thinking. And the state of New York, it's Cornell University. We're very lucky. We're the only university that is Ivy League. So we are the highest ranking in the space of agriculture education knowledge, right? Wonderful institutions are out there, but we're really lucky in that space here in the state of New York. Now, what else is different is, for example, in New Jersey, Rutgers would be the one space that would just have one extension. So no matter where you are within the state, you would have to reach out to Rutgers University for them to help you. So if you're dealing with issues in one part that the other part isn't, like how do you make sense of that? Here in the state of New York, we have 56 extensions. Each county, some have consolidated, but most counties have their own extension. That means we are as local gets. I support everything at a very regional level. We work with all the local officials and all the local trends get identified. So, where is Suffolk? We're very excited to say we are the biggest of the 56 extensions. Sometimes you can combine all the other extensions and it's still smaller than ours. As I mentioned before, we're over 23 million in revenue. We have 220 off season, time season that goes up to 350 employees. And we have over 2,000 volunteers that are active in our database system. We have over 10 different facilities that people can attend to. So when we talk about size, it's huge. You have other extensions that have maybe 20 employees. Okay.
Hmm.
What makes Suffolk so big? And this is to your point of like, why is Long Island such a big, what's happening there that makes extension so great? A lot of people don't know we used to be number one in agriculture for all of the state of New York. We are now fourth. We got beat out by cattle, all the yogurt industry up in upstate, but we are number one in horticulture. That means plants, flowers. Okay, so we export, you can't imagine how much goes out here. We have 550 commercial farmers. A lot of people don't realize on Long Island there's that many farms. You're thinking Midwest farms. So you come and you see what we have here. There's a lot of diversity. So where upstate you only have cattle, here we have vegetables, we have fruits, we have plants. We do have an increase in cattle coming up. So that diversity is really great on Long Island. There's wonderful, amazing production. I think we have something like the last census data was 364 million in revenue that the agricultural community provides here. We also have wine, so we compete with the wine industry in the middle of New York. So all of these things are really what makes Suffolk great. And primarily, we have the marine department. Nowhere else within the state do you have that department? I think we're the only marine component within all the extension systems. So a lot of what happens within our shorelines, our shellfish, aquaculture is a big industry for us here. So and that's what makes this extension so important. So for us, it's not just about the integrity of Long Island for our Suffolk residents, making sure they have the beautiful waterways that they look at, making sure that they have the beautiful farms that they expect to see when they go out east, that they have the wine that they wish to drink with their oysters, that continues to be cultivated here. But then we also have our youth programming. We have 4,000 kids that go through our camp. So our young people are constantly learning about some of this stuff. Like that's not lost in the future generation. And we have a lot of our vulnerable communities that are supported with health and nutrition programming. So it's basically every resident, almost 1.5 million people here in Suffolk that we support.
That's incredible. It really is, and very eye opening to that region of New York. I mean, just that sheer number of farms you mentioned. I mean, that's not everyone knows that
No,
about New York. That's incredible. And it sounds like a lot of great collaboration going on there with the university, et cetera. Now, yeah, curious, it sounds like there's some really fantastic programs in place and initiatives. Can you give me a couple of examples of community challenges that CCE Suffolk has been able to solve by connecting, the academic research with local needs in that collaboration?
we are basically here to support the agricultural community. And sometimes what we love, we also don't understand. When you live next to a farm, you don't understand a lot of what that farm has to endure on a day to day. You're not sure of maybe all the regulations and practices that they have to follow. It's very expensive to do anything on Long Island. Square footage is like off the charts. And we're going against the elements. We have a huge salt table, right? We're by the water, by the ocean, by the bay. All of that has an impact. So the day to day that the farmer has to endure um, is such a big struggle. And actually, way back when, Cornell Cooperative Extension and the Long Island Farm Bureau used to be one organization. They split up because we needed that level of advocacy. So since I only do education and research, I can't do that like lobbying, like legit advocacy for legislators to change rules to help the farmer. All I can share is look at the plight of the farmer. Look at what they have to endure. Here's the research, add an invasive species, for example, to the mix. So not only is it expensive to grow, the elements aren't helping, they've got all the it's so expensive, the regulations, and then comes the spotted lanternfly and just annihilates the wine industry, right? It's like you're like, what? It's like all my so the plight of the struggle of the farmer is the part that we're always working with to try to help because we cannot lose that in all those industries here, especially on Long Island, but in the state of New York, we don't want to lose that here. That's one that's on the bigger scale of agriculture and how we help on a regular basis to support that industry that is going through so much struggle. But then you have just our general community, right? Health and nutrition, diabetes, huge. And everybody thinks you have to be obese and, you have to be unhealthy and that gives you should see you have very physically sometimes fit people. They discover they are diabetic. It's a genetic thing and they haven't been taking care of it. And they're seconds from something very devastating maybe happening. A lot of that is what we do is go out and bring that health and nutrition education. There's obviously a lot of concerns about that right now with the federal government, like what's happening with the funding. And I'm only sharing this with you because it's timely, but SNAP education totally being wiped from not only the budget, but as a line item. They're trying to take it out from ever futurely being able to put funding to it. So, as a nonprofit, what do I do? Well, I have to be patient, right? I have to pivot. I have to instantly figure out, well, we're never going to stop giving health and nutrition. We've got it. We have diabetics here. We have to, that is part of what we do. So maybe I need to look at the Healthy America Again initiative. Like maybe I need to look at how do I pivot what I am training the general public to access better funding? Or do we do it as a fee based
Mhm.
initiative? So this turns a problem into like, well, let's be in action about a solution while at the same time as the executive director, you got to take care of all your employees because they're devastated. They don't know what's happening.
Mhm.
Are we running out of funding? Am I going to be laid off? So those struggles are not only is my community at risk, but also my employees, people that I love and that work here for us and dedicated their careers to being here are at risk. So multi-pronged response there, Matt.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I appreciate that. That is it is very timely topic. Obviously we're out of the pandemic, but it seems like the ecosystem for nonprofits is constantly changing, and there's always some kind of adversity, whether it's funding or ability to reach individuals you're assisting. And it does sound like your organization is quick on your feet is one way to put it, but just realizing that necessity is the mother of invention, and you know, uh, making the pivots that you need to as they come, which is so important in the ever changing landscape here. Now, a lot of our listeners are nonprofit leaders themselves, and so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you for a couple of tips or leadership lessons that have been valuable to you managing this massive nonprofit with a very large budget, hundreds of staff, thousands of volunteers. Yeah, what might you be able to impart wisdom wise with our listeners when it comes to nonprofit leadership?
Definitely. A couple of things have been very humbling, right? It's a lonely place. Whoever wants to be at the top, sometimes I think you may not have been at the top. It's not before because it's not that easy. It's a constant struggle, and you feel the stress and the liability of all your employees and the work that you're doing and making sure you're on mission and vision. And that's regular. That doesn't even include all these like constant bombardment of breakdowns that happen on a day to day. So knowing that it's a lonely place, what do you do with that? Like, where do you go? I found it really rewarding to get a coach. And sometimes your jobs allow you a system, your board can pay for it, or it's really just creating an opportunity to have someone who is going to hold you accountable for the leader you wish to be in your organization. At one point, I was very threatened when this was brought up because I was like, my years of experience, look at my resume. I'm freaking brilliant. What more could a coach tell me, right? Which is like ridiculous when I think back. But it was like me threatened in some way, like that whatever I was gonna find out about myself would have to be a drastic change into the work that I was. I just made it really much bigger. But what I really got from it is just like an athlete gets a coach, they're not going to the gym classes with everybody else. Why? Because they've gotten to the next level. They're not there anymore. They don't need the class to motivate them anymore. They've gotten to a different skill set. So now you need a coach that comes in knowing who you are, knowing your skill set, and refining you to be the best athlete you can be, right?
Mhm.
That once I saw it that way, it unlocked the power of that relationship with the coach. So that's key. The other thing is really creating a system for self-care. It's hard. It's really a challenging, and not just for yourself, for your staff. And I don't mean it like hokey pokey. I mean like, guys, we had a really stressful meeting today. It didn't go the way that we expected it to go. how do we want to support our staff and support ourselves through this so that, we're back at it, ready to go tomorrow. That kind of thinking, I think, is really key. So those are my two things, really kind of maybe getting a coach and
Mhm.
refining your skills and honing in, and to making sure that you create a system for self-care for you and your team.
Absolutely. It is very insightful, and I do think that, that might not always be the first go-to is hire a coach because of that, preconceived notion about like, what am I lacking that I need, outside consultation? No, it's more, you know, um, I've gotten to this level, like you said, and I've gotten myself as far as I can. Let's bring in somebody who can, help me find the strengths to strengthen and, kind of realign anything that maybe I haven't thought of at this point. No, that's a very good,
And
that's a
I
very
wanna
good piece
say
of
as a
advice there.
nonprofit, sorry to interrupt, I was just gonna say as a nonprofit, you can get it at a discounted rate or in some cases free, because that's the other issue, like, who has money for coaches, and but in the nonprofit sector, sometimes they do pro bono work for you.
Excellent. Oh, good to know. And to your other point, yeah, I mean, it's an everyday struggle making sure that you and your staff are showing up with the right amount of energy and the right amount of time spent recharging and, the like. It's necessary for sustainability as a nonprofit. And so that's great that that's at, the forefront of your leadership, which is wonderful. Before I let you go here, this has been so wonderful and it's been great to hear your story and thank you for your insights. As we look forward as we look to the future, when you think about the future of nonprofits more broadly, what gives you optimism there?
Optimism and a little bit of fear, and I'm sure it's not just in the world of nonprofit, but overall is AI. It is, in some cases, so magical, right? Like, I love when my staff has an idea, we prompt the bejesus out of our AI friend, then all of a sudden something beautiful comes out of it. It's almost like you have a friend within the team that you're all like working with to come out with a great product.
Hmm.
What's negative and stressful are all the complications that come from it. Is it fully sourced? Do we know if it's accurate? Is it skewing us in a certain direction? Is it lacking in the creativity that real people bring into the conversation? So the world of AI is taking over, and understanding how to like be a part of that conversation, and making sure that we all stay relevant. I have a lot of young new employees that are already like coming with from school AI trained, and I want to make sure I'm a good support system and leader for them. Like, they're working in some cases almost seemingly like light years ahead, and I'm over here still typing memos,
Hmm.
so like thinking of kind of how to bring that all together is really key for a nonprofit organization right now. And I don't care how little you are, even the smaller, tinier ones, this should be a priority for you, because data analytics, all that work, it's hard for you to do it by yourself when you're a little nonprofit. And you could use something like an AI engine to help you, but then you don't want to lose, again, the integrity and who you are as an organization of human people. But they do say this, and I'll say this because my marketing team and I have heard this many a times. You will not lose your job to AI, but you may lose your job to someone who uses AI.
Hmm.
And not may now, you will be losing your job to someone who uses AI if you yourself are not up to speed with how AI pertains in your sector. And in the nonprofit, people are in there. This is also competition for funding. But if an organization is up and running and using all their technology tools in full swing and you're not, you're already at a disadvantage.
Absolutely. No, it is a massively powerful tool that's becoming more and more accessible, and it's up to us to figure out how best to wield that powerful tool. And so, thank you for that. Now, that's a very good thing to keep in mind for nonprofits of all sizes and really everyone. And well, great, Vanessa. Thank you again. This has been so wonderful. For more information about your organization, our listeners can visit ccesuffolk.org. And what's the best way for our listeners to support your mission?
There's a donate button right on our page. I'd
Hmm.
love for you to give to support. And there's a whole bunch of different sectors. So if young people call to you, or if our agricultural sector call to you, or if the administration, because here at this level, we don't get direct funding. We get a little portion of what comes from grants. So if you want to donate to the administrative team of CC Suffolk, we'd be grateful for it. So thank you, Matt.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you again, Vanessa. We appreciate your time and your insights, and we wish you the very best of luck in your endeavors.
Thank you so much, Matt. To you too.